Hey, everybody. I am Chris Willard, and I'm very happy to be able to bring you a conversation I'm having here today with my friend Andy Savage of High Point Church in Memphis. Hey, Andy, how are you?
Hey, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for letting me be on today.
Yeah, you got it, man. So I'm super excited to get a chance to talk to you. Andy, of course, you're the teaching pastor at High Point, but one of the things that we want to focus on today is this really kind of passionate ministry that you and your team have in the whole area of marriage ministry. I know that's something that you guys are super excited about. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you got so into this idea of trying to build an effective marriage ministry there at High Point.
Well, essentially, it's a bigger story. I mean, it comes out of my own personal life. My parents have a great marriage. I added it up one time. If you take both of my sets of grandparents and you trace all of their children down and all of their children's children, all of my cousins, I was living surrounded by nearly 500 years of unbroken marriage, which is pretty phenomenal today. And it put a weight of legacy on my shoulders, I felt. And so that just began the process of, through my own marriage and my own family, realizing that most people don't have what I have. And I felt the stewardship of that legacy to pass that on to some other people. And so kind of piece by piece, I started meeting with couples at our church. It's not my job. I'm not the marriage pastor, but I kind of became the marriage pastor because I just kept saying yes to meetings and working with couples. And you know how that starts, it just snowballs. And my passion just came out of, man, we helped another couple, and another couple gained some ground, and we saved another marriage, and we helped kids have a intact family, and it's just on and on. And so this passion began to grow. And then my role as a teaching pastor afforded me the ability to teach some series on marriage for our whole church. And I have the privilege of sharing the teaching responsibilities with our lead pastor, Chris, and he and I are able to rotate the teaching on Sunday morning. So it gives me a lot of time to work on my next series. So I can pour a lot of resources into a series. And that's just a privilege and a unique situation we have here at High Point. But it allowed us to develop some of the best stuff on marriage that our people have ever been exposed to. And we saw huge change in people's lives through these series.
Cool.
And so it's just been a great ride.
No, that's really cool. So let's talk about then, what are some of the pieces that you guys do at High Point? What are some of the kind of the pillars in the marriage ministry that you guys are building there?
In the marriage ministry world, we don't have an official marriage department, but we've taken a different approach of creating a philosophy that functions across the board, cross-functionally across our organization. And so the big three areas are: start marriages right, strengthen marriages for a lifetime, and save marriages from boring, bruised, and broken situations. And so we've adopted some language around that, but it's basically start, strengthen, and save marriages. That's what we do.
Cool. That is really good. And you also host a radio program, right? That's also another way in which you're able to kind of have an influence on marriages and marriage ministry.
Yes, I get to talk for a living, man. It's I had the opportunity to get this radio program. It's a 30-minute live show every week. We take calls. It's very focused on marriage, parenting, and family life, and it allows me to speak in this 8-state region just often enough to where people are hearing this message and creating a different conversation around marriage and parenting, particularly, and trying to just change the way most people are thinking about those things.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so if you had to identify one thing in the focus that you guys have at High Point related to marriage that is really working well, something that you think, man, God is really doing something good in this area, what would you say would be the one thing that's really working well?
It is our pre-marriage and early marriage focus. Our church is very young, so reaching young couples that are dating, engaged, and newly married is kind of our wheelhouse, and it's personally a passion of mine. I teach that environment. It is where we're getting the biggest gains in the marriage world. Our marriage philosophy is still developing, and that's where we've really grown the fastest. We've taken hundreds of couples through our pre-marriage process, and just the feedback is phenomenal. I'm getting handwritten notes, phone calls, emails from the parents of these couples saying, thank you for training our kids and setting them up for marriage right. and it's been a lot of fun. And this is one of the measurements I watch, one of the metrics we watch, and that is how many couples are coming to our pre-marriage, early marriage class that don't go to High Point. And 60% of our last semester's class were from outside of High Point, word of mouth only. They found out on Facebook, they found out on social media we did this class, and we're drawing them in. And it's becoming a real reach into the community.
That is really, really neat. That's awesome. And I can imagine what a huge impact that's going to have in the lives of those couples and families over time. What is the kind of the thing that you guys are working on? Maybe what's the challenge that you're facing related to marriage ministry that you're trying to deal with or tackle right now?
It's a good and bad. It's a blessing and a curse. We've got this great ability to reach outsiders at our church, which means they bring their problems with them. And I deal with an inability to keep up with the demands for crisis marriage counseling and crisis response marriage. So what we're doing is we are piloting this summer a Reengage platform, which is a marriage recovery ministry that Watermark Church in Dallas pioneered. And we're taking that on and planning for a public launch in January. So the next 6 months really are fairly intensive, doing a pilot and a beta test and then a launch of this Reengage platform that we feel like the day we open the doors is going to fill up almost uncontrollably. Even at that point, we're just holding the dam back really with the basic counseling we're doing. But we have a number of pastors on our staff, and we cannot keep up with the crisis demand in marriage ministry.
Wow. Hopefully over time, all this influence that you're having in these young couples will start to lessen some of the crisis calls that you'll get. But for now, I imagine that can be overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. We intentionally decided to start by a phrase that I picked up from John McGee out of Watermark is we're playing offense first, and we're not going, because if you start playing defense first, it'll suck every bit of energy and resources you have. So we said we're going to start with the beginning of marriage with the couples that are still learning the ropes, and we're going to try to stop the problems before they start and do some preventative medicine, and then we're going to tackle the crisis, because the truth is, even though every crisis matters, the crises aren't going away. Yeah. And so we've got to help couples start marriage right, or we'll just continue to fuel the system of them falling into crisis. So we were strategic in starting with the offensive measures first, and now we're picking up the defensive side.
That's good. Okay, so I know you get a lot of people reaching out to you and emails, phone calls. People hear about the cool stuff happening at High Point. If I'm a pastor and I'm trying to either start a marriage ministry or maybe kind of restart one that's a little bit stuck, what would you say would be, what's my first step, or what are some of my first steps to kind of get that thing going?
Good question. Certainly don't try to do it alone if you're a single, like a marriage pastor or just a staff person. You need to build a team. And thankfully, I have a team that we've assembled out of my assistant, a few of our staff members, and then some key volunteers who serve as marriage mentors, because it just takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of relationship work. So it's a matter of building this and spreading it out across the team. And that's been probably our most successful thing, because when these volunteers, particularly who are serving as marriage mentors, when they get a taste of helping a family win, helping a couple thrive in their marriage, they're hungry to do that over and over again. And so they take the weight, and every marriage mentor can handle 3 or 4 couples, and that takes 3 or 4 couples and gives them a quality experience to grow in their marriage, which just spreads out the load across the number of people. So I would say start by developing a team of people, but don't wait until you have your ducks in a row, because you're not gonna figure it out before you start. So you better just jump in. And I'm a little bit maybe dangerously entrepreneurial, and so to me, I will jump right in even before I think, because I want to see change happen in an area. And so the ideal is, to me, do some pre-work, get your game plan together, but jump in and just start tackling issues and really see where it leads.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I sort of, knowing you a little bit, Andy, that sounds a little bit like you, bro. A little bit of ready, fire, aim.
Yes.
Never hurt anybody, right?
That's right.
I wonder, are you reading anything lately that has been helping you as you think about either marriage ministry in particular, or maybe just leadership? It's always good to know what leaders are reading. Anything come to mind?
Yes, man, I'm taking this old school turn right now. I pulled out Pursuit of Holiness by Jerry Bridges
Right
from
on.
back in the day. It's got more highlighted and underlined in it from the years I've read it, and I'm kind of working through it again. And I'm blanking on the author of this book. It was written in the 1800s. It's called The Christian Ministry. It's now a public domain work, so it's available out there. But I'm kind of going back to some of the roots of what ministry is about and kind of sinking my teeth into deeper material and being challenged at that level. And now alongside that is I listen to audiobooks almost incessantly. I'm an Audible learner. So I try to do the audiobooks a lot, and I try to stay pretty knee deep into either a parenting book or a marriage book or both all the time. And so I'm working through Till Death Do Us Part from Gary Smalley and Ted Cunningham. And I'm working through Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. It's a book to moms, but it's by Dr. Meg Meeker. It's a parenting work. Try to stay in that. And I actually just finished The 5 Love Languages again by Gary Chapman, just to keep my bearings in the marriage world, and just reminded again of how strong a book that is, and how what a great recommendation it is to give married couples. And if you hadn't read that book lately and you're married, it's a good read. You got to go back to it.
It does help you get sort of language to describe what's going on in your own, how it is that you want to be loved, how it is that you express love. It's good when everybody's using the same language, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I've just learned in the marriage ministry world, some of it is just keeping your brain in the dialogue, in the language, in the phraseology. And that's why even, any of the classic marriage books you want to read them and just keep your head in the game, because it's good to remember too that if a couple you're working with picks that book up, the experience they're having as they read that book. And there's so many books available today. I almost never recommend titles. I recommend chapters. And because nobody has time to read books. So I would recommend, these 3-4 chapters out of a book, and then just tell them move on after that. If you want to read the rest of the book, that's the author's job to get your attention to read a whole book. But if
that is a really, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say that, but I think that is genius, because especially I would say as it relates to working with men, tell a man to read this book, and dude is going to say, I don't read books. I don't have time to read a book. But if you say to a guy, listen, would you read this chapter in this book and then have a 30-minute conversation with your wife about it, he might be able to pull that off, right?
And that's a win. And then again, it's like if you can help people have a small win, they might take it upon themselves to take another step. And it's that Andy Stanley phrase, let's not go for miles, let's go for inches. And if we go inches, maybe they'll go feet. And if they go feet, maybe that can string into a mile one day. But the idea is let's move people an inch. And an inch by inch, they're going to grow, because, man, we just so often underestimate the small step because we want so badly to see the big step. And I think we need to dial it down a little bit sometimes, just for doability, because people are living real lives. They got jobs and kids and families. In ministry world, sometimes we forget that part of our job is that we read stuff. And most people don't read. And so if we can give people an easier way to tackle a book by giving them a couple of recommended chapters, to me, we need to lose this idea that I'm a better Christian if I read a book cover to cover. There's nothing in the Bible that says we have to do that. So let's just get good material in our system and move on to the next thing.
I love that. That's a helpful thought. Maybe the most helpful thought for me of the day. Thanks, Andy. Listen, and I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for all of the hard work that you put in helping to serve your church in this area, not just in marriage ministry, but as you guys lead your team and you try to really do some good there in Memphis and beyond. I really appreciate your heart and your hard work. It's good to be your friend. Thanks for taking a few minutes to share what you guys are up to. And I really appreciate you taking some time to be with us.
Man, thanks for having me. Great to talk to you today, Chris.
All right. Take care, Andy. Talk to you soon.
Okay, man. Thanks.